Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, a frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. Presented by Rogue Matter, we talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with the rogues who created every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Rogue Matter Podcasts. Download our podcast immediately following this live stream on all major podcasting apps. Go to roguewavepodcast.com. That's wave without an E. To subscribe on Apple Podcasts or search for us on Spotify. Join the movement. Go Rogue. RogueMatter.com. Tonight, the plethora of Disney Plus moves, news, and trailers. Mandalorian Chapter 15 reaction, plus we look ahead to the season finale. Lfeeld goes to Archie, and we are joined by Rogue Matter contributor Tia Fabi. How you doing?
I'm doing great. They're projecting snow, so just another reason to stay indoors.
Yeah,
right?
as we're on air right now, it could be snowing at any point. I think it's like 10 o'clock 10 o'clock Eastern is supposed to be.
Something like that, yeah.
Is the snowfall that we are projecting. But we will, people can just rewatch us over and over again as the snow falls. Just
yeah, absolutely.
and tomorrow during their snow day, which is good. I am your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my co-host extraordinaire, the Lord of the Internet, Hassan Godwin.
Great.
I've just upped your title.
Yeah. I don't want to be Lord of the Internet. Have you been on the Internet?
Actually.
It's a terrible, terrible place. Why would I want to be
Lord
Lord
of that,
the
actually,
Internet?
as I said it, I said, wait a minute. Did I up your title or downgrade your title?
Downgraded. I like the radio. How come? What is the resistance to the radio? Stop resisting. It doesn't matter. That's the cheekiness of it. We're not on the radio. See, you don't understand irony. That's the problem, or nuance. Those two things. You don't get those two things. That's what the issue has been like since the beginning.
I just don't think it's very good.
And you have no taste. So all three of those things. It's a terrible trifecta right there.
Well, it's terrible for you because I'm the one that gets to announce you every week. So,
and I'm the one who gets to tell you announced me badly.
There is a section
Win-win.
of the internet that's pretty cool. I mean, the one with dogs and cats. So you could be the lord of that section of the internet.
Dogs and cats living together.
Dogs and cats.
I'm not gonna comment.
Nor should you. So last week was interesting. It was Thursday. Everything seems to happen on a Thursday. Like they drop Mandalorian episodes on Thursday. Disney's like takes it to their investors and just like, here's a boatload of info. Like they don't wait for like a Monday morning. A Monday morning would be really cool, or even a Wednesday morning would be really cool, just to like dump information. But they do it on Thursday. So last week we got inundated with just like monster amount of info. And I had a friend email me and he's like, I just died and went to nerd heaven. Tia, did you die and go to nerd heaven?
So I only died and went to nerd heaven during the Marvel section of it. Cause all right, this is maybe a little bit of a controversial thing to say in a nerd podcast, but I like some Star Wars stuff. Like I love the Mandalorian and I'm really into other things, but I'm not like so big of a fan of Star Wars that while they were announcing the Star Wars stuff, I was kind of like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. But as soon as they dropped the Marvel thing, then I was like, oh my God, I remember what it's like being a Marvel fan. It's amazing.
It's funny you bring that up too, because I mean, that's part of the, reasoning behind. I mean, look, they obviously had this plan. It's not something that they just kind of came out of, nowhere with. But I just felt it was kind of interesting, the fact that Warner Brothers had made their big announcement, the week prior, and then immediately following that was Disney and Star Wars and Lucasfilm and all this other stuff. Right. Now it's interesting too, because it just might be that it's the end of the year and this is what they do, and they're presenting to their investors, and they just happen to schedule their stuff or announce their stuff after Warner Brothers. But I couldn't help but think, every time you think DC kind of consumes the news wire, Marvel comes and Disney comes and kind of grabs it from them.
It was certainly coincidental, because prior to that, people were saying, oh, Marvel's been really quiet. Kevin Feige really hasn't said a whole lot. And then, as you said, Warner Brothers makes its big announcement. And then Disney's like, haha, hold my beer. I got this now.
Hassan, what was your immediate joyous reaction to everything that came out. I'm kidding. It doesn't have to be joyous. I just wanted to frame your response in that way, but I was only joking. What was your reaction to all the stuff that came out, the announcements?
I was like, yay, content.
It's like, hey, we get to do something, right?
Yeah, I get to watch something. There's not, I mean, the biggest event that's going to happen is Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
You know, now it's not a small thing because the first one was pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about that, one superhero with like one great event movie or whatever that we're waiting for it to come to our house on Christmas that coincides with Christmas Day, you know,
that's true
too. There used to be. I mean, this season used to be chock full of stuff. You know, there used to be movies competing with movies and, you know, things moving into the $1 billion column, you know, by now. And just the idea that not only is the only blockbuster coming out as like one DC movie blockbuster, but it's also going to happen on my television. So it's not even it's not even an event that I'm going to get to go to or to, you know, so it's cool in the, you know, on the one hand, since, you know, we're not over what, you know, the craziness of this year yet.
Yeah.
And so we get to be in the comfort of our own homes, enjoying, you know, this brand new thing. But then on the other hand, it's kind of a little anticlimactic, especially if you've been following Wonder Woman throughout the year about, you know, its various release dates. And then it's kind of sad that it's going to be all alone out there. I'm sure it will do well, whatever well is in the new, in the new aesthetic that we have. But, yeah, and I'm hearing that it's being reviewed really well. Like a lot of people are, you know, so I mean that's all good. You know, that legacy is going to continue, but it's a little underwhelming. And also with all the greatness that came out of Marvel and Star Wars, right? Everything that came out of Disney, it's all a year to 2 years away.
Yeah.
So it's exciting, but you know, what are you doing for me now?
Right.
You know.
Right. Well, it's interesting too because I was watching the Falcon and Winter Soldier trailer, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And the scene where he's like flying through, you know, the mountains, and there's missiles being fired at him, and you know, I'm sitting there and I'm watching it on my laptop, which is a smaller screen. And for the first time in a while, I was like, man, I miss going to movie theaters. Like, this would be an amazing thing to see on a movie theater. But
we wouldn't have seen that in the movies anyway.
No, but that's my point. That's my point. That's the second reality that kind of hit, was immediately, I'm like, man, it'd be amazing to see this in movie theater. And then to what you exactly said, the next thought in my head is, well, we're not going to see it on a movie screen anyway. I'm going to watch it. You know, look, I have a.
But I mean,
TV.
it's Disney Plus, so even if we still had movies, we wouldn't have been watching that because it's a TV show.
I agree.
So we wouldn't have.
I agree, but I guess my point being is that the experience of enjoying these kind of projects now, I'm just going to call them projects, right? Because now they're TV series, they're movies, they're TV movies, they're limited
franchises.
Series.
They're franchises.
You know how, right? Franchise is a good way to put it as well too. No matter what we describe it as, the movie theater experience, I actually really miss it now. Like I fundamentally miss sitting in a theater with some stale popcorn and strangers all around me, going with my dad and watching.
I don't know if I miss that one too much.
You know, but
some of those strangers were really strange. Let's just say, but yeah, something.
The collective experience.
There's a fundamental loss of theater entertainment. There's something fundamentally lost. We don't really understand it because it's not something we do every day.
Right.
So we don't miss it until we get some kind of
reminder,
synapse, flash of like seeing something great and then, imagining what that would have been like seeing it for the first time, sitting in a giant, theater, watching it on a giant screen. Like you said, with a bunch of strangers who are usually noisy. I hate movies. But anyway,
that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, I'm watching the sequence and I know it's Disney Plus. I know it's not going to be available in a movie theater, but something like that would have been the the big like climax of a movie trailer that you'd sit there and go, oh man, I can't wait to see that in May, or I can't wait to see that in June, or whatever the case is. So it just it flooded me with these kind of reminders. And also I wonder,
do you remember the last movie you saw in the theater? It's funny. A lot of people cannot remember the very last movie. It was sometime this year. That's what most people are able to say, but they can't remember exactly what movie it was.
Mine was Spider-Man: Far From Home. That was because this is the thing is that like
that was Christmas last year, right? Wasn't it, or something? No. But that was after Endgame.
It was after Endgame. It was in the summer though.
Okay.
Well, that's the thing is that even prior to COVID, I really wasn't a moviegoer. Like I only went to movies for these big Marvel or DC blockbuster films.
Right.
Just for the very reason of didn't always have time to go to the theater, didn't want to necessarily spend the money on a movie that maybe I could just easily enjoy at home. So, my last movie theater experience was literally Spider-Man: Far From Home.
That was a good one, though.
It was good. It was better than people give it credit for. You have some people on the internet who just hate that film, and I'm like, I had a fun time watching that in the movies.
I just watched it recently again, maybe 2 nights ago, on one of those streaming. I don't know where it was, but I don't. It's funny watching it the second time. I had forgotten most of it. That's the problem with the film. I guess it's kind of easily forgettable. Like some of the details in the film are easy to forget, but it's a good movie. I enjoyed it.
It was good. I thought the visuals were good. Tom Holland is always solid, and you have Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Do you know what the last movie?
Kind of a joke.
I think we all collectively saw, possibly, Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey was February of 2020.
I didn't see that in the theater.
I didn't see that in the theater either.
I saw that much later afterward on line where I was like, all right, I might as well finally check this out. Everyone's freaking talking about it.
And then
the last movie I saw in the theater was 1917. I do remember that.
That's a great movie too. Yeah. Yes, I saw that in the theater too. That was also a great one.
And I think that was it. And I think a couple of weeks later, everything was shut down. So
amazing. Yeah. All right. Well, we can reminisce about theaters, but unfortunately, that's not going to be a reality for a few months. Hopefully. I don't
know. I'll be honest. I don't know if I'm rushing to a theater even when they give the all clear. I don't think that's not for me.
I agree. I think
it'll be good to go places again, to get out, to go around. But I don't know about restaurants yet, and I don't know about movie theaters just yet. Personally,
we will see. The reason I brought that up was that we don't have to worry about that because now we have just a flood of Disney Plus content to talk about. Let's talk Rogue Rage, all the rage in the pop culture world. We'll start with the Star Wars stuff. Lucasfilm announces plans for Star Wars and more during investors' meeting. After a sizzle reel featuring highlights from the second season of Mandalorian, Kathleen Kennedy announced that Mando showrunners Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are developing 2 spin-offs. Mandalorian, Rangers of the New Republic, and Ahsoka Tano will have her own spin-off show featuring Rosario Dawson. Kennedy also revealed that previously announced Obi-Wan Kenobi series will not only feature Ewan McGregor, but it will also include Hayden Christensen once again playing the character of Anakin Skywalker. Given the series' place in the story's chronology, which is supposedly 10 years later, and supposedly from what I read, I read a quote saying there will be an ultimate rematch to the Revenge of the Sith battle, which will now be in canon and somehow have to work so that it makes sense in episode 4.
It can make sense. There's no reason.
Again, I'm just saying, so far, Disney has not exactly had the best track record outside of Mandalorian in terms of connecting well with the previous.
Yeah, we can just assume that there's going to be this will be poorly received no matter what they do. I mean, until some time as they win themselves some credibility.
Yeah. Kennedy also confirmed the previously announced Star Wars Andor, a live action series featuring Cassian Andor, Diego Luna, is still on the way. Star Wars Visions will feature 10 short films set in the Star Wars universe. And Kennedy also announced Star Wars Lando, an event series currently being developed by Justin Simeon, which will hopefully feature the return of Donald Glover. And there's also the mystery thriller The Acolyte, which is coming to Disney Plus, set during the final days of the High Republic era. This series will feature the rising dark side. And not to be outdone, they mentioned Patty Jenkins will be helming a
film.
Rogue Squadron film. And Taika Waititi's previously announced movie is in production as well too. So
no mention of the Rian Johnson trilogy. Isn't that strange?
And they also didn't mention that they're redoing The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just not gonna happen. But
all the petitions not gonna happen.
No,
yeah,
that's not gonna happen. They're gonna move forward. They're not looking back. They're gonna move
weird.
forward.
They're not listening to the fans and and remaking and spending multi-million-dollar remaking a movie that's already made them $1.5 billion. Yeah. So strange.
Yeah. So
odd.
Out of this list, Tia, you're not a big Star Wars person. So what caught your attention?
Look out behind you. Look out behind you.
Sorry, my dog always has to be with me.
I thought it was a wolf. I thought we were gonna lose you.
He's getting attacked.
Yeah.
Live on air.
Yeah.
What
So what you
caught
call
his attention?
her attention?
Her attention.
But what was I going to say? Oh, geez. So since I'm not like the biggest Star Wars fan, I did though have a few things that caught my eye. I love Ian McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and so I was previously excited for that show already. And as someone who, again, isn't a big Star Wars fan, I actually did like the prequels, which I know they're like so disliked by some.
All right, Hassan loves them.
Okay, great. So
Nice.
I like the prequels, and when I heard that Hayden Christensen was coming back, I was like, "That's awesome." I don't know how they're gonna do it, but cool. Like, let's see.
They're gonna have him in heavy makeup, and he's gonna be wearing a suit the entire time. But
I feel like they may do some dream sequences or flashbacks or something, because you don't bring someone like him back after so many years and not show his face. Like, at least to me, that doesn't necessarily make sense. I did love Rogue One. I thought that was a fantastic movie. So to see Diego Luna back and to at least have a show that takes place within that world looked really cool. The behind the scenes looked awesome, where they're saying that they're filming it essentially like they filmed the movie. They're not even thinking about the fact that it's a series. They're filming it like a movie. So those two have to be my most anticipated. I am also excited for the Ahsoka Tano show, just because I love the episode that Rosario Dawson was in.
She did an amazing job.
Then again, I loved every episode so far of The Mandalorian, but hers was great. So those honestly definitely top tier for me.
Hassan, Hayden Christensen's coming back has to be the biggest news out of all this, right?
not really. I mean, it's good news. It's really good news. But like, look, if you're not in the loop, Hayden Christensen's really big with fans. Like there's at one of the celebrations, he got a standing ovation for maybe 5.5 minutes. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's and also the fact that he's virtually disappeared, from movies and television and everything. Yeah. But every now and then, every time he pops up on the scene again, it's always something Star Wars related, where they either to talk on the behalf of oh man, I forgot the guy's name, the guy who played Jar Jar Binks, or
right,
for also Rose Tico, like I forget both of their actors' names, but they were getting, he just, to speak out against the harassment that they received online, and
right,
to give them advice, because he was heavily harangued for being, for not,
he got
not
harangued before social media existed.
Yeah, not immediately being everyone's favorite.
Could you imagine?
So like, I wasn't that surprised about. I'm happy about it, but I'm not surprised that becomes a big deal.
Yeah,
that he'll be in it, and also Ewan McGregor was really vocal about it, about loving the idea of Hayden coming back. So that's pretty awesome. That chemistry is not going to be lost, at least.
So for you, what was the one that flagged your attention the most?
I don't know. I'm happy about all of it. Like I said before, like I'm just one of those like this little whiny, jerks that like, well, it's gonna be a year from now. Like who knows what's gonna be happening a year from now. But definitely, like I'm looking forward to it. So I'm looking forward to all of it. Like the problem with everything, and the only entertainment hub that manages to kind of allay those fears just by mention of a project is Marvel, because 90% of their even as we discover, because this is the first time I'm hearing about it, that Far From Home gets a lot of abuse online. Like I haven't heard of one Marvel movie that I never knew about it. I don't.
Just go on Twitter. Just go on Twitter.
That's got to be a small. That's got to be a small but vocal.
But I'm saying. See, even you're like surprised to hear it. That's what I'm saying. Usually, Marvel properties are not initially destroyed when they come out. Unlike Star Wars, there's a lot of stuff from Star Wars that just gets crushed the moment the idea is announced. Not even the moment the product actually arrives for us to be able to consume it. So everything with these announcements is subject to scrutiny. Like, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just waiting to see them. I'm glad that there's more content coming. I'm glad that that Star Wars, I'm glad they took a hit in the beginning and they seem to be amenable to kind of a course correction. Yeah.
Pivoting. Ooh. I like pivoting as a word.
Anyway,
I like that you use that word.
Yeah. It's good that they're kind of aware of that, and that, hopefully some of the subsequent material will be a little more thought out. Maybe. And then I heard the other day that they're that they're just moving on from Rey, Finn, and Poe. Like, the characters that they had previously mentioned that they had a lot of plans for in the future. But I don't think that's going to go too many.
That'll be one of those will be a Hayden Christensen like reappearance.
Yeah, they'll come back 10 years from now. Yeah, something like that.
When the storm has passed. Can I project onto you what I thought you were most excited about? I'm going to do it anyway.
You can say what you thought I was. You can't really project onto me because I resist that.
Okay. I think you were most excited by the Hayden Christensen news because of your love for the prequels. However, a close second was probably the Lando news because you're a huge fan of Solo.
I am hoping that Lando is a sequel. Like that they whatever they were going to do with the Solos, the proposed Solo trilogy,
Wouldn't that
get
be an
most of it.
Amazing idea. Actually, now that it just popped in, like you have Solo is the first part, Lando is the second part, and Chewie is the third part.
Yeah, maybe.
Kathleen Kennedy, call us up. We've got tons of great ideas. This is like, oh my gosh, that'd be like printing money. Oh, geez.
Yeah. I print money now. It's illegal and it doesn't go anywhere. We don't need Kathleen Kennedy. But, look, I'm hoping that that's going to continue because I really did like the aesthetic of Solo and the setup for it, and it was I liked how laid back and lighthearted it was in comparison to all that defeat evil, stuff that usually comes out of Star Wars.
I like it more than Mandalorian. I enjoyed Solo more than Mandalorian.
Wow,
I enjoy Mandalorian, but
that's a lot.
Look at me.
Yeah, look at you. Look at you being wrong. No, I'm kidding.
Not to be outdone by Star Wars, Kevin Feige took the stage.
Yeah, here we go.
Revealed a slew of new shows for Disney Plus, including Secret Invasion, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn, Ironheart, starring Dominic Thorne, and Armor Wars with War Machine actor Don Cheadle adapting the classic Iron Man storyline from the comics. All told, the studio is looking at unveiling 10 shows over the next few years on Disney Plus in a push that will virtually make the Marvel Cinematic Universe a place for fans to visit year-round. On the theatrical front, and this is pretty awesome, John Watts, the director of the Tom Holland starring Spider-Man movies, will helm a new Fantastic Four movie. He also paid tribute to the late Black Panther star Chadwick Boseman, confirming the studio will not recast the role and assuring audiences filmmaker Ryan Coogler was hard at work on Black Panther 2, due out in July 2022. They also unveiled the trailers for Falcon and Winter Soldier, which now looks to be in March, if I read that correctly, and Loki, which was actually pretty cool too. WandaVision obviously is coming out in January. So, Tia, again, I'll ping pong over to you. Which of these announcements did I miss any? I feel like I missed one somewhere in there, but anyway.
I mean, there were so many announcements, but I'll tell you right now that I was most excited for the Loki series just because I am a huge Loki fan. Yeah. I've been a fan since the first Thor movie. So him getting his own show, and it looks so weird. See, that's the thing. It looks so strange. I didn't know what to expect from the Loki series. I mean, you kind of knew it was going to deal with time travel and all that. But once they showed the trailer, I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know any of that was coming, but I'm super stoked about it. Not that the others didn't look good as well. I mean, Falcon Winter Soldier looked great. WandaVision looked kooky as hell, but I think Loki definitely still is I'm most excited for.
Do you guys know, Hassan, I'm going to almost guess that you do know the story of D.B. Cooper?
Yes, I was going to point that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, but
no.
As soon as I saw him in the plane, looking all more like Tom Holland, I was like, huh. But it didn't go into my head at first until I went on Tumblr and someone pointed out, and I'm like, oh my God.
He looks just like the sketch.
Just like the sketch.
D.B. Cooper looks like. So my hat's off immediately for including that in the trailer and including that in the storyline. The other thing that caught my attention with the Loki trailer was Owen Wilson, which was like, I was like, oh, he's going to be in this. I guess I heard that he was, but
I had heard he was going to be in it, but no one knew his role. But for a second, I thought he almost looked like the actor who played Tony Stark's father. I forgot the actor's name.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's the mustache.
He resembles him a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit.
He's got that. Yeah.
But it's so interesting. What the hell is Owen Wilson doing in the Loki show? It's great, though. It's great.
Doesn't that kind of speak to the power of what these streaming services are now offering, though, too?
Absolutely.
We talked about this. We've talked about this over the past 5 years as, Netflix became something and now all these companies are releasing their own streaming services. What a resistance you would have from actors wanting to be a part of a TV show. Yeah. I mean, Owen Wilson is, he's, maybe not anymore, but at one point was as A-list an actor as you're going to get. And now he's guest starring or he's co-starring. He's not even the second build actor in the series. Now, maybe that speaks to his career, or it speaks to the fact that these streaming, services and these Marvel cinematic movies have become, it's the anti-1980s. It's the anti-1990s when actors would purposely not want to be in these movies because then it would ruin their careers. Now it's like, well, you're not in a Marvel movie or a Marvel show. You didn't make it until you were one of these things.
I think the biggest example of that, to me at least, is Christian Bale being in Thor: Love and Thunder, because prior to this, everyone probably would have said that, oh, well, someone like Christian Bale would never be in a Marvel movie. Well, it's going to be in one of the most colorful Marvel films of all time, because directed by Taika Waititi. So it's to me, that's an example of now all these actors want to be involved in this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like Cate Blanchett, being in a comic book movie. That's insane, and chewing scenery, and being and fighting, having fight scenes. I'm sure most of it was a stunt double, but just the idea, absolutely. Or Anthony Hopkins. There's been a lot of heavyweights that used to from previous Hollywood, into the look, that the other problem is that comic book movies pretty much dominate Hollywood, or did dominate until we got into our little rough patch this year.
Tia actually pointed out, she's like, well, I don't go to the theaters unless it's to see these Marvel movies. And her thinking is actually what I think studios know the majority of people have been trending towards over the past few years. And that's why you only get these massive movies in theaters, because that's the lure now to go to a movie theater outside of the comfort of your home.
Yeah. and who knows if that will survive at all. There's so much stuff going on.
You know what? And again, this is my prediction, sure to go wrong. I just speaking for myself, and if I'm projecting myself as an average American, I would sit there and say we're going to have, once we know it's safe, obviously, and safety plays into it, and we can't overstate that. I can't wait to get out. I can't wait to get out of my house. I'm tired. I'm tired of this. Sign me up for I'll go watch like The Notebook in theaters if they want to re-show that.
Well, as soon as Black Widow hits theaters, then I'll be going back to the movies, because Kevin Feige has made it very obvious that he's not going to follow the trend of Warner Brothers, and his movies will hit movie theaters. So it's like, all right, well, I'm going to go with the shield, the face mask, gloves on, sit all the way in the back away from everyone, but I'm watching that movie.
There is something to be said about the legitimacy of the platform. And I'll use comics as an example. At Rogue Matter, we have lots of digital content, and I've had conversations though. It's like, well, we need to also be in stores, because there's a legitimacy to being in retail, to being able to hold something tangible and pick something up. Using that analogy for theaters, there's something more grandiose about the idea of it's almost like you have to commit to this, and it's a big commitment to go out into a theater and see this. And I don't know, it makes it better. And I think Feige even mentioned, he's like 13 billion, we made 13 billion. That's nothing to sneeze at. I think that was the number he gave, and it's something where the paycheck of the box office is going to be, bigger as well too. Hassan, what was the one that again got your attention out of all these announcements?
Probably Loki. I'm looking forward to that one, just to see how they tie it together. I did like the character Loki a lot. I'm interested in Falcon and Winter Soldier, but they keep just by the way they keep jerking that around and keep moving it to I'm like, okay, whenever you feel like dropping it. WandaVision looks interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's good. It's just the concept behind it. And it's kind of a sad concept. It's it's a slightly depressing concept of someone slowly going mad, right. and altering reality. That's and that's supposed to lead into the Doctor Strange movie.
Sure.
So
which will also lead into the Spider-Man movie as well too.
Yeah. So I'm pretty much Loki is probably like the one I'm just like, okay, I'm just announce when that's coming out and I'll be here for it.
Yeah, Loki looks more of what I kind of want from a streaming show. WandaVision also kind of taking these concepts, and I feel like the concepts around what they're doing they're just built for the streaming, episodic, weekly TV format. Falcon and Winter Soldier, again, I looked at it going, man, I wish I could see that on a big screen. So it doesn't necessarily diminish my excitement for that. However, it diminished my excitement for it. I looked at it going, I guess it's how much can I enjoy an action movie from the comforts of my own home? I don't know, so I'm not sure. But ironically, it's not something that I would necessarily automatically give high marks to if I saw it in the theater either. But two things that kind of stood out to me. And I want to get your take on that. The Fantastic Four movie, it was the thing I was most excited to hear about, because it's the first. It's the first, but it's the first Fox property. We heard about Deadpool 3 is being written right now.
Fool me 3 times. Not happening. Not happening. This is the 3rd time they're going to try to do this Fantastic Four thing. I'm sure it'll be good. Me being excited about it, nah.
Well, I'm really curious. I'm very, very curious to see what they do. I'm not a huge Fantastic Four person. I don't think anybody really is. But Fantastic Four.
That's not true.
I think some people
what kind of statement is that?
So Fantastic Four fans.
Yeah. What the heck does that mean?
Mike is projecting how he feels about Fantastic.
Which he always does. That's 90% of our conversations turn into. It's like, what are you talking about?
What was the #1 comic in the 90s? You didn't let me finish, is what I said. The #1 comic book series in the 90s. Hassan?
I don't know.
X-Men. What was the number one comic book series in the 80s? X-Men. What was the number one comic book series in the 2000s? Which was like Avengers. My what I was going to say was that I don't think you have a lot of people today growing up who grew up with Fantastic Four as their number one series versus when it first came out in the 60s and the 70s, where
that is not what you said. I'm sure
that's what you were. I did not finish though.
Yeah, well, you should lead with your meaning instead of like your preamble, which your preamble didn't quite make a lot of sense. That's all. So we balked at your preamble.
I know. I know.
I don't know if you made sense. I think you recovered.
No, you balked.
You didn't. Yeah, no, I didn't. I reacted to what I heard. That's all I did.
People don't have, I think, the same affinity. At least the kids coming up, the generations coming up, don't have the same affinity.
I never agree with you about when you make declarations about what people like and what people don't like, because there's no metric for it. As far as you feeling that way, that's
pretty. But I know it's true.
Yeah.
I will say that I think people's interest in Fantastic Four is because it hasn't necessarily been adapted well live action.
Right.
Now, me personally, again, here's my hot take. I did like the original two Fantastic Four just for the fact that I thought they were fun. I didn't read anything else into it other than the fact that they were just so early 2000s. Chris Evans is in it, so it's like cool. The 2015 one was obviously a dumpster fire, but people, I think their interests are like, okay, we've had now 3 movies, none of which have seemingly been adapted correctly. Can we do it actually correct this time now that the property is in Disney's hands? I think that's where the interest comes into place, in my opinion, from what I've seen on the Twitter sphere.
No, I think it absolutely. The other one that caught my attention was Ironheart. Now, Ironheart is a controversial figure within the comic book community in that it was a replacement for Iron Man. And it was a 15-year-old African-American teenager, Riri. And she is the one that kind of like assumes the Iron Man, costume. And it was very controversial. Anytime you replace the main hero, you're going to get some blowback. Who they chose to replace it with also caused a stir. And what I thought about when I saw this is that the movies, to me, are the things that are going to set the tone for what comics are more popular as we go along. There are going to just be tons of teenagers and kids and, people in their early 20s watching Ironheart. It's going to be good because everything that Marvel seems to do is always well done. That I feel it's going to impact the perception in the comic book industry of this character, where her initial introduction in the comic book sphere was, again, highly controversial, and there was significant outrage. I don't know, for lack of a better term. But now you're just gonna have a slew of people that get into the comic book based off the series, and it's going to establish this character going forward in the comic book space. Do you agree, Hassan?
Maybe. That's a possibility that could happen. That's what everybody hopes happens. That's the whole reason they do these things to hopefully it will boost the ancillary market, that the source material came from. But, who knows? It's going to be, it's a natural transition in this particular situation because in pertaining to the MCU, Iron Man wasn't killed off specifically to be replaced by this particular character.
Right.
In the course of events, in the course of natural events in the MCU, he ended up, dying rather spectacularly. So, if there's someone comes along to take up the mantle, that's not necessarily a replacement of the character. And Ironheart isn't Iron Man. That's what's so ridiculous about it.
Right.
Ironheart is just another character.
Right.
Doesn't mean Iron Man doesn't exist or, never existed or was rewritten. It just means that someone else has an armored suit. Right. Kind of like War Machine.
Right.
Kind of like so I don't know. The controversy is kind of dumb anyway.
What I found interesting too about that is exactly what you said, though, where you already have another Iron Man. You've had several Iron Man. You've had several all of this. So I think the context of the controversy was in the reshaping of many Marvel titles at the time. But what kind of strikes me now is this now synergistic relationship, which I guess in a way they've always had, but it feels a little different right now. It feels as if the comic books can now be the proving ground for concepts that will now be brought to Disney Plus and developed to an entire generation that has no concept of the comics. Armor Wars being another example of that, where that was a very famous like storyline, and it just gets me thinking, like, are we going to have an Act of Vengeance movie or TV series coming soon? Are we going to have an Inferno? I mean, there were these legendary runs in the 80s and 90s of company-wide crossovers that can now infiltrate their way into the small screen in a way that you might not be, you wouldn't, not that you couldn't do it. I mean, you sort of did it with Captain America Civil War, but in this sense, it mirrors the comics so much more in the sense that it's serialized, just like the comics were. So you can have these kind of like event-driven episodes. It gets me excited. All right, pick your top ones. First of all, who had a better day? Star Wars, Lucasfilm, or Marvel? Tia, who had a better day?
I mean, just from a opinionated stance, I feel like Marvel had a better day. But if you are a huge Lucasfilm fan, you'll probably say Star Wars. But for me, I was like, wow, those titles for Marvel are just amazing. Because I don't think people, prior we knew that they were doing a Cassian Andor. We knew there were rumors about a Lando series. I mean, we knew about a fair amount of these series that were coming as far as Star Wars. But who knew a Secret Invasion, Baby Groot, a freaking, as you said, Armor Wars and Ironheart? Who knew those were coming out? I mean, that was just like a spectacular announcement.
Yeah.
So,
Hassan, who had the better day?
I think Star Wars had the better day only because that's all I heard about. Like I had to look for the Marvel news, but everybody was buzzing about all the possibilities of Star Wars, and it was coming up on Twitter and everywhere else. But of course, like Marvel, Marvel is a monster, So I mean, to compare the two of them, and they're both part of the same company, so to compare them is kind of haphazard. But I would say from a peripheral perspective, it seemed like it was the most of the momentum was behind the Star Wars stuff.
I agree with you, actually, Hassan.
And they had the more trailers, even they had fake trailers, like fake fan trailers for Obi-Wan and some of this other stuff that were just popping up all over the place.
I would agree because of the Hayden Christensen news. Once that dropped, to me, I felt like that was the biggest bombshell that was dropped in the entire weekend. The Marvel announcements are awesome and cool. And the ironic part is Marvel will probably end up executing these things better just based on track record than what we've seen so far with Star Wars outside of Mandalorian. But that was like
a question mark from Marvel because they had a really, really, really strong potential ending for the MCU. And so everyone's quiet anticipation is like whether or not they're going to be able to build the same kind of momentum going into their next phase of, post Endgame that they were able to do, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So we'll see, we'll see.
Well, I think that's why probably they are starting off essentially with movies like Doctor Strange 2, Spider-Man, just because those are going to really open up for a lot of the Fox properties and open up differently. So I think for them, they probably feel like a lot of people are questioning the way you are. I mean, I even heard people say that they weren't going to watch any more Marvel movies after Endgame because the story was done to them, which sounds ridiculous. I know
they're going to,
they're lying.
Streamed into their living room,
But I think Marvel's like, okay, we need to set up this next phase with a bang, pretty much.
Yeah, I agree. And some of the stuff that I've heard, that seems like they're getting it done. They're doing it. I think the Black Widow I think that's just so late. Like the idea of doing a Black Widow film after the character has died, is like it's so cheap for the character, But
I mean, we've wanted that for me at least, being a woman and Black Widow having been the first female Avenger, it's like we wanted that years ago.
That's what I'm saying.
When the first Avengers movie came out, it's like, okay, when's Black Widow getting her solo? And just as you said, I mean, now she's dead and there's no possibility of bringing her back. Really, you're gonna do that.
Her movie is a setup for her replacement.
Exactly.
It's so just that's kind of
Yeah, no. But I mean, I'm still looking forward to it. But it's kind of bittersweet.
I'm still excited.
It would have been a good bridge from the aftermath. I mean, Spider-Man: Far From Home was also in a way the epilogue to Endgame because of the the overshadow of Tony Stark within that film.
These things are really difficult to do, but in retrospect, from a layman's perspective of someone who doesn't have to deal with the logistics, it would have been better if her movie was in where the Ant-Man 2 movie was, just prior to Endgame. And so that kind of leads us into like something, we understand the tragedy that happened at, in Endgame because we got most of her backstory and everything like that. So doing it after all of this is kind of like, but I'm sure after it drops and we've seen it, we'll easily put it, into context with the rest of the universe.
I mean, I'm still pumped. Like it's going to be, Winter Soldier-esque, which is still my favorite movie in the MCU of all time. I like Black Widow. Yelena looks great, and David Harbour's in it. So I'm like, all right, I'm pumped. Let's go.
All that was announced, and we didn't even have time to cover the fact that Indiana Jones gets pushed back to summer 2022. But it will be the final.
And Harrison Ford is still going to be in it.
I mean, he is going to be super.
There really is no Indiana Jones without him.
I agree.
I'm telling you, if they do a replacement Indiana Jones, I'm telling you that will be more of a disaster than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. If they replaced him.
But they need it to be, if they're going to do anything with the show, with the series. I guess what they could do is they could do the Young Indiana Jones and try that again on Disney.
They tried that,
No, I know, but now
they tried that even in the 80s when Indiana Jones was at its height, and it's. I know.
You got to somehow get Chris Pratt in there as recast as his son to take the mantle. I think that's your only bet to have anything.
Chris Pratt is just not Harrison Ford. That's the thing. Chris Pratt looks good, but he's not Harrison. I mean, if you watch Harrison Ford, if you watch the way Harrison Ford acts, Harrison Ford is basically, even though he is the underdog in every situation, he somehow is the alpha of every situation, even when he's getting his butt kicked.
Yeah.
And Chris Pratt is the underdog in his own series. Look at the way Star-Lord is treated. It's just and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with his portrayal of any character. It's just not Harrison Ford's portrayal. So I would not pick him to replace Harrison Ford. I think that would be a big disaster.
Well, what do you guys think? Like I said, we barely even had time to talk about it. There was just so much other stuff going on, and until something concrete comes out, we won't talk about it. But give us your take. Let us know what you think. Comment in the comment section on Facebook. If you're listening to us on a podcast, go to the Rogue Matter Podcast's Facebook channel, and you can join in the conversation. When we come back, The Mandalorian has competition from Bill Burr. We react to Chapter 15, and we look ahead to this week's season finale when we come back.
Welcome to Button Stash, the show about the best mustaches in gaming.
Casey, it's Button Smash. It's the new gaming podcast from the Rogue Matter Network. I don't know where you got mustaches from.
Well, I'm not shaving. But we will talk about gaming news, reviews, inside scoops, and retrospectives.
Join us live on twitch.tv/WeAreRogueMatter on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, or download our episodes wherever you listen to your podcast.
But please, Casey, shave.
Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. Check out Button Smash, the newest podcast to join the Rogue Matter Podcast Network. They stream live every Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/WeAreRogueMatter. All right. We've been doing this every week. Thank goodness for Disney Plus, Mandalorian, giving our reaction to the previous episode. It stinks that the new episode basically comes out the day after our show because by the time I feel like we come around to this, I feel like everyone has already kind of discussed the previous week's installment. That being said, I think everyone has kind of felt the palpable upping of the ante over the last 2 weeks, right? Is that fair to say that all of a sudden, S has hit the fan here a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah. The stakes are pretty high now.
The one takeaway I got from this past week with Bill Burr guest star, the overwhelming outpouring of affection for his performance and what and the portrayal of his character and the character's actions within the film, or within the episode, was in stark contrast to his Saturday Night Live opening monologue, which got universally panned on Twitter, which I thought was really an amazing 180. So if the lesson I took from this past week's Mandalorian was, if you want to repair your image, just go on the Mandalorian and be awesome, because that will all of a sudden, I remember during the SNL monologue, which I thought it wasn't bad, and he had that Samuel Adams sketch that I thought was pretty funny too. He gets on there and I don't know, I felt like he just took over that whole episode, right? I mean, I felt like he was I didn't know he could act that well. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. What are your initial thoughts when you saw him, Tia, when you watched the episode?
Yeah, I think my initial thoughts reflect yours. I didn't know he could act that well. When you see Bill Burr, he's a comedian, and I think I had talked about this with other friends where I was saying he kind of surprisingly felt out of place in The Mandalorian, but in a good way almost. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really just had him as a standout, and on top of him just looking so out of place, he also just dominated the acting in that in that episode. To me, it was all about Bill Burr, which is crazy because there were definitely moments that were so significant with Mando, but those almost became overshadowed with how good Bill Burr was. Yeah.
Hassan, what was your take on Bill Burr? Do you shower him with the love that the internet has now showered him with?
I always loved Bill Burr. I don't even know what the Saturday Night Live. I didn't see it because I don't watch Saturday Night Live, so I didn't even know there was an incident, right, or whatever his monologue was. I've seen him in other things, so I kind of know he can act. It's acting. He was, what he was. He wasn't really acting. He was sympathetic,
right?
And that's, that is acting, but that's something different. I mean, to achieve sympathy is very difficult. It's kind of an accomplishment. So there is that. There is a phenomenon that people are starting to notice, that Mandalorian is becoming a guest in his own show. He's kind of in the periphery of his own. Yeah, and I mean that lends to some rumors that have been going around about Pedro Pascal, but who knows? Who knows if anything is true? Nobody's really talking
the rumor?
about.
I haven't
heard. He's not there anymore.
I believe that Pedro debunked that, though. I just saw in a recent article that he said that that's not the case or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, in season 1, though, he wasn't always in the suit.
He's not. They've done a showcase of the performer, the stunt performer who's in the suit 90% of the time.
Yeah. Although I heard, I think in season 2 he's in it more so, just because he shows it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
I interrupt him every week.
Sorry. I don't even remember what I was going to say. So
I feel bad.
I don't remember what I was talking
being
about.
A guest star in his own show.
Oh yeah, that's what people are talking about. That's what people are saying. So it feels that way. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, no one's talking about, nobody's talking about Mandalorian ending. Although I've seen articles now where they're saying that he's going to be replaced by Boba Fett. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. And I think that's a lot of great fodder and clickbait for the internet crazy people.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. There's only one thing in that episode that that just got me. I'm like, wow, that's just such a show thing to do. Is that they kind of spring. First of all, they're showing that Bill Burr is doing like this crappy manual labor, right? So he can't be happy what he's doing. Someone comes to kind of spring him out. And he's like, why? Why do I need to leave? And it's like, all right. That I would kind of jump at the chance to get out of there. Yeah. The other thing is, he sees Boba Fett, and he immediately knows that's not Mando for some reason. Like, if you weren't familiar with the whole, like, if you were not a Star Wars fan,
right,
and you saw Boba Fett or Mandalorian or Din Djarin, right, you would probably call them by each other's names. If you were a novice and you saw a Din Djarin, you'd be like, hey, Boba Fett, that because that's what so if Bill Burr is not a Mandalorian, he's not familiar. He sees someone in Mandalorian armor, and the last guy and the last job that he did was a Mandalorian. Right. He probably would immediately have thought that was Mando. So it's just the fact that he recognizes that's not the same guy was a little bit, of a Clint Eastwood kind of situation, because they allowed Djarin to come down the ramp of the Slave One and look, and do the Western swagger. But to me, that was like, oh, come on, dude. There's no way you would have been able to distinct one from the other. They just did that for the show.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think
it's not a deal breaker.
No,
it's just a quirk. It's like a kind of quirk.
I would sit there and tell you his resistance to leave at the beginning, though, I kind of understand in a way, because I think he's more of a realist. He's like, wait a minute. I'm not supposed to leave. If I'm leaving, it probably can't be good.
Right.
It was almost like he's safe. He knows he's safer if he's locked up and doing manual labor.
Strangely enough, I found his apprehension to leave when they cut him loose more believable than his apprehension to get out of the prison. Because I'd be thinking as theoretically as whatever lifestyle that guy's been living in, I'd be thinking, look, as soon as I get off this planet, get out of this prison, I could get away from these guys. Yeah. So that would have been my initial, that this is an opportunity to get away.
Right.
But when they cut him loose and he thought they were going to shoot him in the back, that's exactly when I would have been apprehensive about probably getting shot in the back. So I think he did that. I think he did both scenes really well. It's just his resistance at the beginning, I would have thought he would have jumped at it.
Sure.
But that's just me.
No, yeah, and I agree with you. These are just little quirks.
It's just it's only a mentionable because we're talking about it. It's not even a thing.
Let me ask you a question. We've got the season finale coming up now.
Yeah.
And I do love the final scene in the end of the episode where Mandalorian kind of revisits the speech that Moff Gideon gave, at the end of season 1. The one thing I'm finding, and this is, this enters into prediction territory in a way, and I'm not necessarily asking for prediction, but I really want to ask the question, when all of this is said and done, because it's coming to a head next episode, this feels very similar to, again, like the Stranger Things setup, where they set up one storyline across 2 seasons. Like, there's not really a third storyline. There's Boba Fett, but he's going to get his own series.
We don't know that yet. They didn't announce that yet.
No, but he's in the Obi-Wan series. They announced that he's going to be in the Obi-Wan series. I mean, they did announce a limited series, I believe, or maybe that's rumored to be happening. But other than that, I don't.
At the very end, after they rescue him from Moff Gideon, some Jedi will show up to take him away, and that'll be the lead into the next season.
I guess so, but at that point, I feel like, where does Mandalorian go from here?
Well, you can have him learning more about himself, because the whole thing is that, his mind, like, freaking blew up in this season. Prior to this, his whole thing was that Mandalorians don't take off their helmets. I must cover my face at all times. And then suddenly he's meeting all these Mandalorians who are like, you're a foundling who is taught things by this, more extreme group. We're actual Mandalorians from Mandalore, and we take off our freaking helmets all the time. So you could have him maybe, just learning more about that or something more into the Mandalorian lore as opposed to him just being this like lone wolf. Could be something along those lines. Who knows?
Does Moff Gideon play a role in any of this? I mean, there's one thing at the end of season 1 to where it looks like he dies. And then we know he's still alive. And then, I was about to say Boba Fett finds out. Mandalorian finds out that he's not dead. It's not necessarily a trick you're going to play again. Like, I feel like this is going to be a decisive confrontation.
Vader kept getting away in the original Star Wars movies, So, I mean, it can happen. You can do it. He could get away. So. I mean, look, the thing is, unless it's an extended episode, the finale, they haven't really done a lot with Giancarlo Esposito, I mean, they got him there.
I agree with you.
So, I mean, if they kill him off, that'd probably be chalked up to a waste of a good actor. So I'm sure whatever his plans are will be severely set back, unless it doesn't even end with him losing, which is another possibility. So, I mean, who knows until we see it.
No,
it's good. These things are great because you see, I'm not against like prediction. I'm not a total hater of them, but part of the fun for me of watching stories is watching how they paint themselves into a corner and get themselves out of it.
Right.
So then hearing everybody's like, not us and not anybody here, but like hearing the typical lame brain, predictions from fans, Mace Windu will show up and kill everybody and then take over, like, it's like, come on,
that would be actually
man.
pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
No, and then again,
it's not gonna happen.
Either it's absurd and terrible, or it's better than what happens. Like it's lose for predictions. Like either that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard,
right?
Or that's awesome, and then they don't do it,
right?
Like look at the Snoke predictions. Look what happened with those. It's like the people
that
people
I feel
made,
like was a different case though, right? Because the first filmmaker
that's
set
the
up
exact case. But
well, okay, yes, it is what you're saying, but it's also a little bit different than what we're saying because that had the first filmmaker set up a whole bunch of questions that he thought the second filmmaker was going to actually attempt to answer, and the second filmmaker is like, F that, we're done, we're good.
That's what I'm talking about. We're still at the mercy of. Of filmmakers.
Yes, but this has continuity. It's the same people.
We don't know that.
Well, no, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
We don't. Yeah, but we don't know what continuity they're following. We don't know what formula they're following. We don't know if they think that Moff Gideon is as important as we think he is. Right. So we don't know. That's what I'm saying.
But at least it'll have continuity between seasons versus. In terms of who's running the show. Like, put it this way, if their plan is to not make Moff Gideon a very important part of it, I feel it will at least be executed within the confines of the series/story. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I would assume because they sat there going, we kind of know.
I get what you're saying. My only point
like what
is
Ryan
that
Johnson was basically like.
But that's not an extenuating. That's not a completely extenuating circumstance. I mean, because there was a lot of predictions about Endgame, and Infinity War. It's just these predictions that are just outlandishly terrible, and just don't really go anywhere.
But I'll never. You know what? Here's the thing, right? I will never look at Endgame, though I don't love the way they did it. I mean, even at the time when we did our podcast live from the comic book store last year, it was this time last year. We were doing for Star Wars, and then we had done an Endgame one in May. We kind of talked about it. I wasn't in love with Endgame. I'm still not in love with Endgame. I think Infinity War is a far superior film. And it's an amazing film. I think Endgame, the way they did it, left me with more questions that are not the fun kind of questions, but more of the, I don't quite get that. That kind of makes my head spin a little bit. All right, I guess that works. All right. But at least I have the comfort of knowing it was the Russo brothers' vision from start to finish, and maybe they didn't execute it properly. I look at the Star Wars trilogy, the sequels, and I'm like, Man,
I know you're getting specific about like which property. I'm just talking about the practice of making like these outlandish predictions about what's going to happen and what's not going to happen, and just explaining to you what my apprehension to them are.
I see it, I realize it, and I agree with you on what your point is, and I'm just leveling a different point on top of that. The point on top of that is at least I have the comfort of knowing that, pass or fail in terms of execution, it's a singular creative vision that we are getting, right? Like not every season's going to be great, not every episode's going to be great. Some ideas are going to fail, but I'd rather them fail because they set out with a plan and executed the plan and it just didn't come out good versus we have no plan. We're just throwing this together.
The thing with predictions is that, you can predict. That's kind of, to me, part of the fun of it, but have it be realistic and also temper your like expectations, like me saying, oh, well, season 3 maybe could, deal with Mandalore and the lore of it. That's just, a very general thing. But as Hassan was saying, people who would like come out of nowhere with the most unrealistic expectations of like, this person's going to jump out and save the day. And it's like, wait, what? Where are you going with this? Right. This is so random. And then get mad when that doesn't happen. It's like I said,
it's a setup.
I think you can.
It's a setup to fail.
I think what you were saying, and this is where it gets it, is when it borders on the yes, it could happen, and then it doesn't. Mace Windu coming out.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying in general. I'm not even saying there's something wrong. Those are the most
disappointing ones, right?
I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with making predictions. I'm saying my apprehension to them is that it's lose-lose. Either whatever they are predicting is so stupid that you don't want to hear anything else that they have to say, or it's so awesome that now whatever reasonable thing happens in the show is it doesn't live up to the prediction.
But that's what I was just saying. Those kind of predictions are the ones that are more likely to ruin the experience for us. Are the ones that you
those are the only kinds that you hear. Like those are I'll listen to industry rumors, which is a form of prediction from industry insiders who heard X whatever, and I'll take those with a grain of salt. But when some random YouTuber comes along and says this is exactly what's going to happen because I know the story and I know how stories work, it's like no you don't, and I don't want to listen to you. And it turns something otherwise, perfectly logical, turn of events in a story, and it turns them into something bland because someone had, predicted that Jesus was going to show up at the last minute and save the Mandalorian, and then you're like, man, I would have really liked to see that instead of what we actually got. So that's why
the most amazing ending to any movie.
That's why I can't really say. And then a lot of times it's like it's an industry now. Predictions has become an industry. It's like a cottage industry.
Sure. And
so now people aren't even obligated to make logical predictions because they just want to put a prediction, out into the ether and have it trend.
Right.
And so you're not even getting genuine believers like making these predictions. You're just getting average schmoes like coming up with like, I believe that Marf Tarkin's gonna return from the grave, and you're like, all right,
twin brother Marf.
Yeah, Marf Tarkin. exactly. So
Marf!
that's
hey,
who knew? Hey, you weren't on the Death Star when it blew up. So also like I think the reveal in Rogue One that Tarkin was gonna be in the film, and then they were going to have the audaciousness to make him a main villain in the film. I think that surprise to me, watching that for the first time, was worth a 1,000 predictions. Sure. Like holy crap, this is they're not only is this guy dead for 30 years, but they're gonna but he's the I thought when you see him for the first time, I thought what they were going to try to get away with is you were only going to see the back of him,
right,
and his reflection in the window, right, and then the guy was going to leave, and you were never going to see him again. So then he turns around and then chews scenery, making fun of the guy. You're like, this is actually happening. Yeah. That's way better than any Snoke is actually Mace Windu in disguise predictions that I heard for The Last Jedi. So I just think predictions kind of spoil everything. They kind of ruined the whole.
What do
thing.
you guys think? What's your prediction? Should it go wrong? Are you in agreement that?
What's your
Mandalorian is taking a
predictions?
backseat
You
to
see,
Burr?
This is why
We will take
Tia,
them and
you see
run
my
with
pain,
them
right?
on our own YouTube channel. It'll be fantastic. When we come back, we go spinning the racks. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We do this, well, not every week anymore, but we do it as much as we possibly can. We like to discuss the things that are happening in the comic book world that will make its way onto the big and small screen. We call this segment Spinning the Racks.
Spin the rack, spin that rack.
Archie Comics has tapped Deadpool co-creator Rob Liefeld to create a 4-issue comic series featuring the legacy superhero team, the Mighty Crusaders. This is from IZV2. The series will launch in 2021. Liefeld is a writer and artist, but Archie Comics has not said what roles he will be filling in the new series or whether he will be working with other creators. Purpose of the series is to reintroduce legacy characters such as the Shield, the Comet, the Jaguar, and Fly Girl to modern readers and possibly raise interest in TV or movie adaptions. Archie has had success with television programs such as Riverdale and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina in recent years. In 2012, Archie relaunched the 1980s era Red Circle imprint as a mixed digital print line. The flagship team was now the New Crusaders, who were the children of the original Mighty Crusaders. In 2017, Archie rebranded the superhero imprint as Dark Circle and published self-contained stories about individual characters. You were a big fan of Riverdale, right, Tia? I think you were. You liked Riverdale?
No, that was Kelly. Sorry.
Right. It was one of it was someone we had on. I remember we had both you guys on in previous episodes, and someone was a big Riverdale fan. I still haven't watched Riverdale. I don't know. It's on my Netflix queue, and it's been there forever, and it's never gonna get watched. I feel like, but Hassan, you were never Riverdale either.
I kind of like Sabrina though. I was, but that's coming to an end also, and that's in the same universe according to the creators, same creators, so same, kind of the same thing.
I gotta hand it to Archie Comics though. In general, we actually have a friend of the show and former colleague of ours, Alex Segura, is one of the main editors there. I think he's the vice. I think if he's not the chief, he's up there in terms of the editorial staff. They do a lot of really cool things with the Archie line of characters that you don't expect. Like it's kind of a fun thing when you see these kind of announcements because it's almost like, why not? Archie is a very brand specific title, and then they kind of like threw that out the window when they made Riverdale this like murder mystery adult oriented show, and in a way that, to this point, again, I'm not a huge, I don't watch it, but from what I've read about it, people just really dig like a company that takes chances. And I feel like this is a company, this is a move that is a take chance kind of move with Lfeeld, kind of joining. Now, Hassan, have you seen any of the preliminary artwork that we're showing on screen right now?
No, I have not.
Still hasn't figured out how to draw on a bicep correctly yet, but he will.
I am going to be diplomatic and keep my opinions about all of this to myself.
That's kind of the fun of Rob Liefeld, though, isn't it? Like, it is kind of fun. Like his work is very Michael Bay to me, right? It's very like it's exciting, it's explosions, it's angles. I was rereading his New Mutants run, and it still pops for me. Like, this is 30 years ago, and I'm like looking at his artwork from 30 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still like, 12 years old, 13 years old, thinking this is like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like, there's still something about the energy he brings to a page.
I'm going to be diplomatic and say nothing about what you're talking about.
Anatomics.
I do have strong opinions, but I don't think that this is a good venue for those strong opinions.
This is not a good venue.
He's a great guy, though. I've met him. He was a decent guy to me. You know, like in talking to him, I think he's a decent human being. And
very good with fans too.
He's an industry giant. You know, you got to give it to him on that.
Yeah.
He's very talkative. I have another colleague who did an interview with him about a year ago. And if you listen, I mean, like, to be honest, he's like an interviewer's dream, right? You don't have to pull teeth at all. You ask you ask like a 5-word question and he's gone for like 20 minutes, you know, and it's like, oh, cool. That's no work for me.
My job, right?
On another show, we did an interview with Mark Hamill. We asked him like a 2-word question, and he answered that. It took so long to answer that question that everybody else who had questions couldn't ask because he had run out of time.
Oh my!
So that was, I mean, it was great for us, but but we were not popular that day. That's all I
hate that on round tables when it's like you want to ask in the person, and it's like, come on, I'm waiting my turn.
But I mean, if Rob Lfeeld is like that, then those are fantastic interviews. You know, when you're like, you just nudge them and then let them go on a tangent of their own, and that's pretty
opinions.
Awesome.
There's no question about it.
Yeah.
He also does not like criticism, which I get also.
Which is why I'm being diplomatic and saying as little about the situation as humanly possible.
Well, but this is the funny part, right? So I had posted something on my Facebook feed, and it was promoting. We did a little preview of the Todd McFarlane documentary, and someone had commented and said, like, I just don't get Todd McFarlane. I don't get why he's such a big deal. Like, it was legit. Like, I have no information because I didn't grow up a comic book fan, so I don't really understand why he's such a big deal. And to make my answer as simple as possible, because I just, I'm not going to go into great lengths, the details of Image and Image Comics. I said he was the artist of the 90s. And Rob Liefeld commented on my comment and said he wasn't the only one. And basically kind of made reference to the fact that he outsold Todd McFarlane. And the love I have for X-Force and for Youngblood, and the love I have for Rob Liefeld's artwork rekindled when I went back and reread all the old comics that I created when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. And to see me mimicking his art style at that age so blatantly, I was like, dude, I wasn't even insulting you. I really just had to answer something really quick. But he never responded back to that. So, so it's just interesting. I guess he has a bit of a sensitivity to any of that. So.
Which is why I
was just gonna say. Which is why Hassan's being very diplomatic.
Well, Rob, if you're listening out there, we love your work. We'd love to have you on, and we will reach.
What do you mean, we, white man?
Tia, thank you so much for joining us. You can catch some of her articles and interviews up on the Rogue Matter site. I believe you did one with the wonderful creator of this podcast that is up there now as well too.
Yes.
And
wait, who was that again?
He was extraordinary, though. He's the extraordinary host, as per the title. So I do love that. And we'll get the interview with Hassan, and it'll be that'll be the pulling teeth interview that you do.
It'll be great. I'll just ask him questions about Rob's life.
Yeah. I'll just be diplomatic the whole interview.
The whole entire
What else do you want to talk about? How about the weather?
Just that.
Yeah.
Wait, that would be great, though. Actually, it's like I asked 5 questions about Rob Liefeld. It's just the same answer. And then we just go on for like 30 minutes about the weather.
Yeah.
It's the best interview ever.
Is it snowing yet? Next week, it's the Mandalorian season finale. We will be all over that. And we will look ahead to Wonder Woman 84. We'll see you folks next week.
Rogue Wave.